Well, to find out a little bit more about what we can expect from the medium-term budget policy statement on Wednesday, Xhanti Payi is a senior economist at PWC South Africa. Xhanti, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. We need to start, really, with how bad the financial situation is. The finance minister says that we spent 200 billion rand that we didn't have. That sounds very bad indeed.
It is. The situation is very, very challenging. We just actually look at the current numbers for March that have come out. And really, it looks like the situation has deteriorated. We have, what we expect to probably an extra 50 billion rand deficit in terms of our tax collection. And then, of course, on top of that is what the minister is concerned about, the expenditure. Because really, from the beginning of the year, these are the kinds of things that we're concerned about. The minister, in the budget in February, outlined 5 things that he was worried about. It was growth, it was SOEs, it was overspending on the salaries of the public sector, and then of course the financial situation globally and interest rates. And all of those things have come to fruition, and so there isn't really any space to move where you say, well, which worry did not actually come to pass. So it's that kind of a situation.
So what does he do? I mean, what does the National Treasury do? They cut back on some spending? Do they borrow more money? Both of those are bad options.
Both of them are bad options. I think one of the key issues, of course, is that the challenge you're facing is growth. When you cut spending, you directly affect growth, right? Because, of course, people have expectations about government expenditure. But also, usually governments are not very good at cutting things that may not affect growth. So, and this is on top, of course, of unfunded budgets, because there's also that, right? There's the spending that we wish we could do, but we don't have the money to do. Then there's now the cutting of spending that we had planned to do, especially where it can affect growth, whether we think about consumption expenditure, of course, which is a big thing in South Africa, but also the infrastructure that we need to build, and then also the support we need to give to growth spending. So all of those things that we cut, we are really in the major risk.
You've suggested, in fact, government and the private sector should work together. What kind of sort of collaboration are you looking at? Is this around infrastructure?
Absolutely. I think, Stephen, one of the things that we know we have to do is to build infrastructure, especially infrastructure that supports business. We know, for example, some of the infrastructure issues that local businesses and local government are facing. And some of these things are actually what they call unfunded budgets. So a municipality does want to build a reservoir. They want to expand the energy sources. They want to bring in communities into water. And one of the things that we want to do there is that in one way, can the private sector work with the particular municipality or government department and a community? Because one of the things that's also emerging, Stephen, is that, of course, as business starts to now have these problems and pay attention to problems of service delivery, it's after, communities have been dealing with this for a long time. And so it's also a good idea for business to be able to engage communities in the delivery of infrastructure that is growth enhancing and is supportive and inclusive.
There are all sorts of conversations around this. I mean, it seems to me that the private sector may be about to play, already is playing, a much bigger role in our economy than it's played at any time since 1994, and probably actually before that, to be honest. So, I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that government loses control of some infrastructure, like it may be about to lose control of SAA?
Look, I think, Stephen, one of the important things, of course, is really the idea, it's always been the idea about who should be responsible for what output. And actually also sometimes in whose hands is the money best used and spent. Should we be paying more on taxes or should we be paying more on investing and spending and creating that growth? And there's a suggestion that's very important to think actually the better role our communities and ordinary people and business have in their own destiny, and government only playing a supportive role, the better we're actually going to be. Certainly, we've seen, obviously, in the last number of years, that government's capacity, as everybody all keeps talking about it, even government itself has agreed that the capacity of the state is rather thin. So all of those things are important to say. Look, we actually need to foster growth. We need to foster and we need the resources that may be existing within the knowledge of communities, but also the accountability sometimes that's also present when communities are actually owning some of the infrastructure that actually is good for them. So all of those conversations are important, and that actually having left everything to government was probably not the smartest thing that we wanted to do, especially at a time when we are actually very much trying to drive inclusion. And to include really means in this real sense the participation of the private sector, of ordinary people, of small businesses, in making sure that they are actually their own when they look after the assets that actually deliver their prosperity.
Xhanti Payi, thank you. Senior economist at PWC South Africa. Do appreciate the time.